Impro Theater and the cast and crew of this online performance would like to take this time to honor the indigenous peoples of the ancestral and unceded homelands we each inhabit, and to consider the legacy of colonization. In Los Angeles, we pay our respect to the Gabrielina Tongva peoples. Impro Theater supports the promotion of an anti-racist world, where we recognize diversity, equity, and inclusion as central to our values. We are listening, learning, and growing. We invite you to join us in taking action wherever we can to create a more just world. Impro Theater and the cast and crew of this online performance would like to take this time to honor the indigenous peoples of the ancestral and unceded homelands we each inhabit, and to consider the legacy of colonization and its far-reaching effects. Please be advised that today's conversation includes language and content that some viewers may consider appropriate for mature audiences only. Please use your discretion. Thanks. Thank you for joining us for Impro Talk. I'm Mike Rock, your host. Please give a warm welcome to today's Impro Talk guest, Mr. Larry Dorsey Jr. Woo! And also, I should say, Larry, you are in the middle of teaching a class at Impro LA via Zoom.
Yes, I am. I'm teaching freestyle, and it's my favorite thing in the world to do. So teaching it is just as fun. And the students are great, as usual, as normal. It's a learning process for everybody. I'm excited. I've been teaching it for a while now, a couple of years. So,
what do you say when somebody signs up for your class because they've heard about you, or they've just been recommended or dragged there by a friend or something? What do you say to people who are like scared of it, or scared of being embarrassed or something like that?
I usually tell them to be their authentic selves, because a lot of times there's a stereotype or a preconceived idea of what hip hop or freestyle should be. And I tell them to just wipe all that away, come with a clean slate, think of it as poetry, RAP, rhythm and poetry. You know what I mean?
Nice.
So if whatever you do is 100% perfect and there's no judgments, it's improvising. So what there's going to be mistakes. There's going to be, there's going to be, you know what Miles Davis said? Miles Davis said, it's not about the note that you mess up on. It's about the note that follows up after that note.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And Thelonious Monk talked about the music in between the notes. I love so it is your journey to improv and to teaching improv and stuff is an amazing story. Your life story is an amazing story. So I want to talk about that just a little bit, if possible. And you're a Bay Area native, and in California, that means San Francisco area. So tell me just a little bit about growing up in San Francisco, and you went to a number of different schools and stuff like that. Ended up in acting eventually, and that kind of thing. What kind of San Francisco childhood did you have?
Well, so you said Bay Area native. I would like to clarify, I'm a San Francisco native.
Right.
Because, in this is so even neighborhood to neighborhood, it's going to be a different culture that you're going to be not indoctrinated, but raised in, you feel me? So yeah. San Francisco, like when I was growing up, you could tell where someone was from by a handshake.
Dang.
Or by the way they dressed or a haircut. So so once you cross the border of San Francisco, right, because there's two bridges. One goes to Marin, the other one goes to Oakland, right? But once you cross the border on the south side, everything changes, because in San Mateo County, it's a 96% conviction rate. So growing up, we were told like, don't go there unless you're with your parents or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, watch out for the border. It was like the old Western movies, like, ha, across the border. Like, so I was raised with that kind of mindset and thought. But growing up in the city, you know, my father lived a very adventurous life. He's the kind of person who tells stories. Have you seen Big Fish?
Yes, yes.
Okay. My dad tells a lot of
McGregor.
stories like that. You know, he and a lot of magical realism in his stories.
Really?
And he swears that they're real. And I feel like that's something that's we're losing as a race. Maybe in other countries not so much, but in this country, I feel like we're losing touch with storytelling. You know, I like to say I'm a storyteller because if I tell people I'm a comedian, then they will be like, "Be funny," right? So I'm a storyteller. But we're losing touch with the old traditional griot or griot storytelling. You know, the people who used to, that's how oral traditions and stuff were kept around. We're losing touch with that because everybody's all in their phone. And in order to think, there must be moments that you don't think at all. And if you're constantly getting bombarded with information, it's going to be difficult to come up with your own information. And I noticed that a lot on Twitter or TikTok, a lot of it is reproducing or in a sense plagiarizing what has already been done. But back to what I'm saying, my dad grew up telling us these stories. And so my brother and I were like, we want to live a life as exciting and adventurous as my father's.
That's fantastic.
And so we tried to outdo him and do the wildest things. And when I hit around 18, I decided to study everybody who made history, like from artists to revolutionaries to just you name it, and see what their life trajectory or path was. And I tried to replicate or do as much or more as them.
That's amazing. So your dad was I think is an attorney and played in the NFL. Am I right about that?
No. My mom was a lawyer. Yeah, she wasn't. She's from Colombia in South America, so she was down there, but out here she's not. And then my father played professional football, and then he moved to teaching martial arts.
Oh, teaching martial arts, amazing. Yeah. And so so your house with stories, magical realism, etc., must have been sort of like a magical enclave of hearing these stories. I grew up with smart parents, but they didn't tell magical realism stories, which, but we were into theater and movies and whatever. So there was a bit of that. I think I credit that with a bit of why I became an actor and all that sort of thing. But this desire to outdo the stories that you heard from your father sounds like an amazing challenge or endeavor for you and your brother.
Yeah.
And did it play out like in school? Did it play out at? Oh, okay.
I mean, at this point, he already says we already outdid him, but it's not in a competition sense. It's always beautiful to see the next generation take it a step further, whether it's educationally, economically, spiritually, whatever, right? But to touch upon what you said, you gave me a thought. Something that I think about often is, as someone who is Native American or African, right, growing up as colonized people, a lot of times you have to grow up faster. And when you grow up faster, you tend to lose your appreciation for imagination because you get slapped with reality so much that you don't have time for that. So if you notice, a lot of times when it comes to entertainment, there's not too much imaginative, Latino or whatever movies. Like Black Panther was such a big thing because it was the Afrofuturism, and people were like, whoa, what is this? I've never seen this before. No matter what your socioeconomic or educational level was, it was mind-blowing, and everybody was able to receive it. So I think a lot of times people from these backgrounds, we lose our ability to dream and have fantasies. Like if I try to put on a Harry Potter or a Star Wars movie for a lot of my closest friends or relatives, they'll be like kind of lost or be like, what the fuck is this? You know what I mean? Turn it off, you know?
Yeah.
And I think because of my parents, my mom, since I was a child, would always say, books are treasure, books are treasure. You know what I mean? That's the attorney in it, right? and then my father would, you know, he was always found reading as well. So I think because of that, my brother and I were able to keep a sense of imagination where everything around us was just a brutal reality, right? And I remember my mom would take us to like parks or like nature places, and we would play in the wild and stuff like that. Like she would just let us go and we would play for hours. Like I'm talking about like 6 hours with sticks. I mean, I'm talking about to the teenage age.
Yeah.
Where we would be in the wild pretending we were saving somebody or solving a mystery to you know, to an older age. And you know, as we got older and realized that, you know, we wanted the cool crowd and stuff, it transferred to roasting. And so we would spend hours just cracking jokes with our friends and making fun of each other. And then from there, you know, people get egos as they get older and fighting. We had to kind of transition it over to freestyling. And so that became like one of the pastimes with our friends where we could still work our imagination and still understand reality and still be cool, right?
you just described, I mean, this is of course why you are who you are. You just described in this perfect microcosm, like the 10,000 year tradition of you know, exploring myths and storytelling in a single kid's lifetime, like exploring in the forest and then having to like change, like reading Harry Potter and stuff, and then having to alter how you deal with it with your friends, and just by like cracking jokes, giving each other crap and roasting each other, and then transferring that into a more acceptable form of challenging each other with freestyling. My mind is severely blown right now, because that's I mean, that's perfect. You're teaching class right now. Is what's happening. That's amazing. So this might sound, I don't want to sound controversial, but let me just ask this. So freestyling, you know, grew up in the Bronx and grew up in inner cities in the 70s, out of hip hop and et cetera. Is it hard to like teach a class and think, oh man, some of my students are just thinking about how to rhyme and they don't really understand where this comes from? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Is that a hard thing to deal with? Do you try to like put that out up front, or is that not really your concern with the forum?
So the I think rap started over there in the East Coast, but the freestyling, like the real where it got grounded, started actually here in California, in LA.
Okay.
But yeah, I try to stay away from like racial or revolutionary type subjects, especially when teaching through improv, because a lot of the people aren't Black, and so I don't want to like polarize, ostracize, or whatever like that. Sure. So I graze upon it, like I touch upon it here and there, but for the most part, I focus on the musicality.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you could be the lyrical, miracle, spiritual, sporadical, radical. You could do that kind of rap. It's not really my thing, and it's not a lot of people sings. That's why it's not on the radio. But I try to get them to focus on how could you make your voice an instrument that complements the music, because that's the most important part. It's not about the rhyme. It's about how you are. It's like a dolphin swimming through the ocean. The ocean's the music. You're the dolphin. You got to have some type of rhythm and flow with it and go with it, you know? And so that's what I try to emphasize in the class, and have fun. Because I want them to remember it's about having fun, you know. Yeah. I used to stress myself out because I wanted to be good, right? Because I have been writing for so long. I claim to be a rapper, whatever. And freestyling I could never do. Now that I'm older and I work at the hip hop radio station, everything, now I know that most rappers can't freestyle, or at least that well. You know, they'll give you the basics. But now I'm like, damn, I'm so deep in it.
Yeah.
Did I need to get this good? I don't know, but it's fun though. I love it. I just freestyle for hours this past weekend on stage, like at this little event, like for hours. So just
shout out to 106 KMEL in what do you have you been during the pandemic doing your show from home, or have you been going to the station?
It's complex. It's complex right now. Everything is, everything is all over the place.
Remote.
Hopefully, after the pandemic, we could get things back to regular scheduled program.
Yeah. So you play a bunch of musical instruments. Are you self-taught? Did you just pick up, playing music on your own, or did you like study when you were a kid?
No, I actually went to college for it so when I was in, I wanted to teach myself everything. Right, I was kind of like just trying to be a polymath, I guess.
That's your mom, man. That's your mom telling you books are treasures.
I hate when people speak on things that they haven't done the proper epistemological research on, right? All the understandings of knowing, they just speak on shit, right? That's what we're in the age. We were in the age of information. Now we're in the age of misinformation, because there's so much things getting thrown out there and nobody's done the actual research. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a lot of I heard that such and such, or I saw a thing.
Yeah,
I saw a thing the other day.
More than scientists and professors, like, what? I concede. If I'm in a room, I know my expertise. I know what I'm good at. But for the most part, I'm willing to be wrong. I'm willing to learn, and I'm willing to go. I don't have the answers. This person probably knows more than me. I may not even agree with this person, but I'm gonna have to concede because this is a fucking scientist, you know?
I mean, that is the ultimate sign of intelligence, is being able to say, I don't know, or I'm wrong, or I'm willing to research it, or clearly you've done the work, it takes bravery, it takes courage, it takes intelligence to be able to do that. That's not required on TikTok.
Yeah. Yo, the pseudo intellectuals that is like all over the internet right now, and then the people who follow them, it's like, whoa, even Trump. I thought Trump was one of the most entertaining things that ever happened, right? Super entertaining. Should he have been fucking the leader? Am I supposed to cuss or no?
You can cuss.
Okay. Never should have been president, ever. But entertaining as hell. For me, people who I want to see as leaders are intellects, but a lot of times people who are smart don't want to lead. They're like, I don't
That's
wanna.
Exactly it, man, because they see how the system works. All right, so man, you have so many things. You have so many stories. I'm just trying to get my hands on it. All right, you got into acting and performing arts because you were interested in comedy, interested in being funny and that sort of thing. And you tell this story about a friend bringing you to the Punchline, maybe, is that what the comedy club? Yeah. And you got to see some shows, and then eventually you get a job working security, so you got to see tons of shows and meet tons of comedians. Talk about that a little bit. That must have been a kind of an amazing, eye-opening experience for you as a kid, growing up with your dad telling these stories, and then being able to work at a place where people are just up there telling stories and being funny.
Yeah, the Punchline. It's funny because I could have worked at a job that would have gave me benefits. I would have been able to buy a house. I would have been able to do a bunch of different things. And it was between that job and the Punchline, minimum wage,
Yeah.
no anything going on. And I
nights.
chose the Punchline. And I remember my dad going, he respected it. And my parents, they support me. They trust the decisions I make. But yeah, it was great. It was great working at there. I learned a lot. Just seeing a week of, I got to see everybody damn near,
Yeah.
for a week, every night, multiple shows, so it was a blessing at that age to be able to experience that and understand it. To be able to, you know, hang out with Robin Williams, to be able to hang out with Daniel Tosh, to be able to hang out with all sorts of comedic greats and legends, and get in, and to this day, be able to get into shows for free and watch and still associate and be a part of this community. You know, during the I realized, because I've been an activist all these years as well, and I took a step back from that. This is really stressful. It's a lot of pressure and stuff. And now that and it's indefinite, right? My heart is always there with the people and the movement, the revolution, everything. But I feel like I was reading this on dialectical materialism and how I could best affect my people and my community. And it's through my art. That was a talent that I have, and people gravitate towards me for. So yeah, that's why I stepped away. But I realized during the pandemic, I was like, man, you know, I love being a solitude type kind of person, but you need community, just even if it's just a little bit, and social media isn't enough. And so being back around these comedy circles, because I just started getting back into stand-up now that things are slowly opening up and I'm vaccinated and all that, it has really been good for my mental health and my spiritual health, because just being around a bunch of people who their main objective is to make you laugh, and they're crazy as fuck, and they're weird, and they're just nuts, and they're racist, and they're all the the isms you can imagine, but in the comedy world, there is no judgments, and there's like Dave Chappelle said, he said it best. There's an audience for everybody. And so I don't approve of a lot of this stuff or agree with it, but I'm like, that's their truth, you know what I mean? And it allows you to be more open and understanding and have conversations as a comedian. I think now it's just everybody's just clashing. There's no conversation, there's no understanding. There has to be a reason why the person you disagree with thinks the way they think, right? So what is it? You know, you want to hear a crazy story? I don't like telling this story that much because people, they don't agree with it. So in college at SF State University,
San Francisco State University, ladies and gentlemen,
this writing class, right? Okay. And there was this guy who was a neo-Nazi. Like, he had the tattoos, he's fresh out of prison. Like, he was the real deal. I could show you pictures. Like,
and he's just walking around campus like you, carrying his books, going to whatever, advanced calculus.
Yes. And apparently, like, people started putting posters because apparently he spit on some woman, like, of color, right? And, you know, he, like, his social media was literally Nazi Brian 2023 or some shit like that. And he had pictures of himself superimposed next to Hitler, and all. It was next level. Like,
so he's not just a Nazi, but he's a vampire. Just
kidding. Yeah, he was the real deal. And so he was in one of my classes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And the two people who talked the most were, guess who?
The two of you
and him.
Oh man.
And we tend to agree on most of the stuff we talked about. It wasn't political, it was more like philosophical type things, right? And after class, he would want to walk next to me and continue the conversation. And I'd be like, fuck, right? I didn't want to walk next to him, but what am I gonna do? This guy's an ex-con. He's like, you know what I mean? And I'll be like, okay. We, you know, conversations were pretty interesting. He was really smart. I think a lot of people have that misconception. They think a lot of people say, oh, they're all in the South. They're all gonna die off. And no, a lot of the new age white supremacists are young. They have money. They're educated, etc. And so, you know, and then a rumor started going around campus. This is the craziest part. Even with my activism, I've done, and I'm not the type of person to brag or be all, I've done more protest activism speeches, you name it, than 90% of people, right, at that school. Maybe everybody at that school, right? And there's a rumor that starts going around the school that says, I'm a white supremacist sympathizer. And I'm like, y'all don't even know the work I do. What the? So people are just automatically judging me, right? But for me, and this is how it's all going to connect up, right? What was he doing? nobody talked to him on campus because everybody was afraid of him. Even the white folks that might have been his ally didn't talk to him, right? But he was looking for community. And the only person that he could have conversations with was me. And why is that? One, because of my comedy background, but two, I believe in Aristotle is the mark of an intelligent mind to be able to entertain an idea without accepting it, right? Or becoming emotional, right? So I can have conversations with anybody. And growing up in San Francisco, all the freaks and the people that express themselves and come from around the country, I grew up with them. I had to have conversations with them. I got to know, why do you think this way? Even if I don't agree with you, even if whatever. And so he just wanted somebody to talk to. And he told me that. He said, man, you know, you're the only person to ever talk with me. Wow. And, you know, and thank you for that. And he goes, you're Black. He goes, you want the best for your people. I'm white. I want the best for my people. And we have that understanding. It was wow. We had some crazy conversations. And I was like, okay, right? And I was like, I want the best for all people. But yeah, okay, but I understand what you're saying. But yeah, he opened my mind that people aren't willing to have conversations. You know what I mean? Even this is how, and people try to say, oh, it's like the guy who tried to convert KKK members, yeah, like that. But I wasn't trying to convert shit. And I wasn't really trying to have conversations. It just, he would walk out of class with me. What can I do?
It was circumstantial. Yeah.
And so for me, you know what that opens my mind to is that nowadays, and this shit always blew my mind because I'm not a sports fanatic. People will fight you, and historically, you could get killed for what sports team you root for.
Yeah.
What? Yeah. That blows my mind. You're gonna get into it, as I have a shirt with a gun on it. You're gonna get into a physical altercation over some imagination. Over something that's not
they like the red team and you like the blue team.
And the red and blue, people will kill you over the colors you wear. So it's gotten to a point now, though, where it's so deep, it's so the opposites of polarizing is just so much, right? The disparities, everything is just, people are just ready to fight. People are ready to shoot. People are ready to get into arguments. People don't even know the full story. They're gonna jump on the headlines and just go crazy. It's nuts. And I believe in the total opposite. I believe in being patient, taking your time, trying to get all the information before you make a decision. You know, some things have historical context, so that you could like police, right? You could say, oh, I don't know if that police killing was justified or not. I don't have all the information. But what I do know is historically, police started as
slave catchers.
And there's never been history ever where there was a relationship between police and the Black community, right? So that's what I do know. But what I don't know in this specific instance is what the facts are. But I do know the historical context. So, you know, even with that, there's so many levels to things of understanding, and most people aren't willing to do that. People glorify ignorance.
Yeah, there's this defense mechanism of like, well, I just know what I know. You know, I know what I've heard, or something like that. Do you think that what you're able to see in the world, forgive me if this sounds sort of elementary, but I just kind of want to figure out how to get into this topic. But your sort of ability to see the conflict and see the short-sightedness and I guess like closed off nature of people. Do you think that you have a maybe a larger understanding or a larger ability to see that based on growing up with your community of friends who, you know, got into trouble together and had to, you know, in different schools, they had to deal with authority figures that were racist against you or who were judgmental about you? Do you think that gave you a sort of a perspective of now saying like, oh man, this is just history repeating itself?
Somewhat, yeah. I think it contributed to it. A lot of times I think my father, you know, and it's crazy because you would think he would be a very hateful person because of all he used to get spit in his face. He grew up in the 50s, you know what I mean? He used to have to put his head down and step on the sidewalk, shit like that. He's from Texas, he's from the South. So but my father always taught us to love, not have hate in our heart. And I've had hate in my heart, not because naturally, because of a reflection of what I was given. And I was like, all I have is love, and people are trying to hate me. What the fuck? And it made me bitter, and I had to overcome that. But my dad I remember we used to drive down the street as kids, and we would see transgender prostitutes here in San Francisco. And my dad would roll down the window and go, twirl, girl, twirl. And like compliment them and give them a positive affirmation. And my brother and me as kids, we'd be like, what the fuck, right? And then as we got older, we came into the realization like, wow, my dad, just at his nature, is he wants to see everybody happy. He wants to give love because of all the hate he received.
Oh man.
You know what I mean?
That's amazing. So
I think for me, part of it was that. The other part I tell a lot and my dad always told us to have love for every human being, you know? And I think the other part of it is I think how I started comedy. I tell this a lot. I started becoming the class clown in kindergarten at a very young age. And the reason was because it's just being naturally the class clown, but I got deep into it because I would make the class laugh and there would be certain kids who wouldn't laugh. Mm-hmm. And I'll be like, what the fuck? This motherfucker don't think I'm funny? Right? And then I would, bullies would, do the opposite. They would bully the person or whatever that, me, the outcast, I'm like, I'm going to find out what makes you laugh. Like, I'm going to get your funny bone. And I would befriend them. It backfired. I remember this.
So you're disarming them with humor.
Exactly.
But it backfired one time?
Yeah, I didn't want them to be sad. You know what I mean? I didn't want them to be sad, the outcast. I remember this one dude, I think his family was from Vietnam. Damn, what was his name? I can't remember. But he was nuts, right? Even in elementary, like he was like violent, threatening people. Like he was on another level. And I remember I was the one person who befriended him, And there's a Dane Cook joke where he was all like, he made friends with all the weird people. And so then he was all like, when the person decides to shoot the place up, he'll look at you and go, you could go. You know what I mean? I didn't. And as I got older, when I heard that joke, I was like, it's hella funny because I always befriended the people who probably would shoot a school up, right? And so I remember one day in class, it was third grade, he went on a rampage in class, just breaking hella shit. Everybody goes to one side of the room and the teacher's in front of the whole class, right? And I just sat in my chair because I was like, I'm not afraid. I don't give a fuck, right? But the whole class is in the corner of the room and the teacher's like this, calm down now, calm down. And the kid has a desk in his hand, like, oh, I'm gonna fucking kill everybody. And then he slams the desk down, right? And where I'm sitting, he comes and stands next to me. And I'm all like, I'll never forget that feeling, right? Because I was like, fuck, well, I should have went with the rest of the class. But I knew in my mind, if I went with the rest of the class, he would have thought I was siding against him.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I just stayed in my seat. I didn't go with him. I didn't go with the class. I just stayed in my seat. And then he stood next to me. And he says, and he puts his hand on my shoulder. The only person who understands me is Larry. All of you, da, da, da. And he's just like screaming, yelling. And I can remember the feeling of not so much embarrassment as much as, wow, like this guy, I'm the only person who really gave him a shot to listen to him or try to understand him, you know what I mean? And that's how I feel a lot of times with gangsters and like real thuggish kind of people who look at them as bad. Like for me, I know them from their smile and the way they laugh. But people in the streets they're gonna judge them and think of them in a certain way. Oh, they're scary. My dad, for instance, he's not a gangster, but my dad is a dark-skinned black dude with scars across his face. So when people see him, they don't know he got a master's degree. They don't know what he's accomplished in his life. They just see this dark-skinned black dude with scars on his face that's kind of big, and they get scared. And it burns a hole in his heart. You know what I mean? My dad complains about it. He's sad all the time about it. He's like, people just run away from me all the time. People get scared of me. And so for me, I know a lot of people who people look at them and think of them as crazy. But for me, I'm like, what's this person's story?
What's in their heart?
They're a human first, you know what I mean? And so when you see that, you're not trying to, oh, you're a Niners fan, I'm a Raiders fan. No, you're a human, I'm a human. We're here to have fun at a game. I don't care if my team loses, your team wins, whatever. I'm not gonna fight you. The game is the issue, not you. So I don't know.
So
I
you
just
grew. So you. Do you credit your parents with that kind of, let's face it, gigantic empathetic heart that you have, or did that come from multiple different? Do you know what I mean? Do you know?
I don't.
Let
I
me
think
ask you
it's
to.
multiple different things. My
Yeah.
mom is the most loving person you ever meet. Like the first thing she'll say to me ever, and when she sees me, "Tengo hambre," which means "Are you hungry?" I cook. I'll go cook.
Oh
How's your day?
man.
So my mom is just in general is just that's the energy you're gonna get from her. I always tell her, "You're my Jesus Christ because you're my
Oh.
savior."
So at one point you probably had a sort of a hard shell of defensiveness and like the world is a negative place, and you talk about kind of finding a way to crack open and be able to be more forgiving, I guess is the best way to put it. Do you know, was there a specific period of time or group of people that helped you with that, or did it just have to evolve on your own?
Going. James Baldwin. He said, "An educated Negro is in a constant state of rage."
Yeah.
So I think it was just recently, um, not during the pandemic, but I think it's when I stepped away from activism is when I kind of got. No, I wouldn't say that. It's been a process, but
Sure, of course.
you know, that's a difficult question to answer because I haven't thought of it a lot, but it's a it's been a journey trying to understand it. I think the most impactful humanizing kind of thing that happened to me was the Meisner Technique Studio. Um,
Yeah.
with
Was it Jim Jarrett?
yeah, Jim Jarrett. He because he was so passionate, he was so deep. I give him a lot of credit for this. He helped, and where I was coming from, he helped me understand humanity more. There was some incongruencies because most of the people were there and were white, right? And so a lot of their complaints, not to discredit them, right? We all have our own. Everything is relative, but I would know like 8 people that died that week or some shit like that, and they'd be like, "Man, I fucking didn't get my order on time," and I'd be sitting there like, I know niggas that are dying right now, and you over here complaining about an order.
Yeah,
But
you talked about a friend. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, no, it's okay. But yeah, I think that having to put myself in the shoes as an actor, right, of all these different characters, I think it really helped me have more compassion and patience with other people and understanding, because everybody deserves some form of love as a human being. And everybody as a human being, we're all looking for love. That's what at the end of the day, my favorite song is by Nat King Cole. It's called Nature Boy. That's my favorite song of all time. Because in the end, after doing all types of stuff, you could do a million things. You're going to die, but also all you really want is love, right? And not in a romantic sense. It could be in any sense. It's just you want that connection with somebody,
It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We need food and water and shelter and et cetera, but we want recognition,
Yeah.
and we want empathy and community and love and acceptance and the ability to express who we are on the inside and have that recognized and accepted. And in some cases, have a, as you said, an Aristotelian sort of exchange of ideas where we're not judging one another, but we're listening to one another's points of view. Humans need that. That's what is meant by connection. Do you think that your work as an artist, creator, improviser, teacher, I know you've got very involved with activism and literal activism, as in going to protests and all that sort of thing, in the Black Lives Matter movement and other places. Do you think that do you think that your art and creativity and the teaching of art and creativity is a satisfying channel for spreading that same message of love, acceptance, and sort of shaking people awake to the reality of the last 500 years?
In a sense, I try not to be preachy. You know, if there's going to be a message, it's going to be subliminal or it's going to be, you know, brief. But I wish I didn't have to teach.
Of course. Of course.
I want to be working. I want to be on SNL. That's where I want to be. I want to be, you know, writing for the Tonight Show or something like that. But I guess I have to be patient. And, you know, I think one of the reasons that's keeping me away from that is I'm doing so much.
Yeah.
I've talked to so many people about it. You know, in the circus, when you train a lion, they say you lift up a stool if the lion's going to attack, and the 4 points on the stool confuse the lion, right, of what point to attack on. So we're all lions, and if we have too many things on our plate, we're distracted. We can't eat the full meal. You know, we're doing all over the place, so we can't attack like a lion. And so right now, that's another reason why I had to take a step away from a lot of things, because I wasn't giving my full heart to anything. I look back at my 20s, you know, I did a lot. I don't party, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, you know, I do the herb, but I don't do what most other people do. You know, I don't hang out, I don't kick back, I don't do none of that. And nothing against it, I don't judge it. It's just for me, I'm always in a state of like, I want to do something. I want to produce. I want to get something. Yeah. You know, my one pastime is watching movies, but I've damn near watched every movie you can imagine at this point that I want to watch. So it's like, the only thing I could do is create. Right. So right now, what I'm doing is I'm focusing on music, because I went to school for acting and film, but that's not what I wanted to go to school for. I wanted to go to school for music, but they didn't have an accredited music program that I wanted to be a part of. And my grades from high school were so bad that I couldn't get into a school that may have that program. So it's kind of like a full circle. I went through all different types, the hero's journey, right? All different types of phases. I did the activism, I did the artist, I did stand-up, I did everything, which I'm gonna come back to stand-up. But in the end, what I wanted to do since I was a child was music. And it's always been so corny for me when people say I'm a rapper. So I hated saying that, right? Even right now, I'm saying music. I'm not saying rap. I'm a musician. I consider myself a musician. And at school, to come back to the question you asked earlier, I went to City College, take all these classes. And what I did was I took all the music classes. I took singing, music composition, how to read notes. I did audio engineering. I did guitar, African drumming, piano. And I took all these classes and taught myself all of it, because I was like, I'm in love with music. I want to know music. Fuck rap. Fuck the yo, all that stuff. No. I love music. If you ask me what my favorite artists of all time, most people, especially from my community, are going to name rappers. Me, my favorite artist of all time is Bob Marley. My second favorite artist is Fela Kuti. My third favorite artist is Miles Davis. So it's like, even my top three, none of them are rappers. So for me, music is the essence of it. And so on my birthday is October 2nd, which is coming up.
Everyone, please note, Larry Dorsey Jr.'s birthday is October 2nd. You can send gifts to Bay Area Theater Sports. Bats, go to Bats social media at Bats Improv.
Or mine at Larry Dorsey Jr.
Oh, yes, excuse me, at Larry Dorsey Jr. and flood him with birthday well wishes for October 2nd.
Yeah, and the best wish you could give me is by clicking the link in my bio, which is the sign up for the album I'm dropping on my birthday. I'm dropping an album on my birthday.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And it's going to be kind of like a coming out, after I did, one of the things I believe in very thoroughly is paying your dues. So when I came out as a comedian, it was after 5 years of hitting the stage. So I was on stage for 5 years before I did a big show where I was like, I'm a comedian now. And for music, I've been doing music since I was 10 years old. So it's been 20 years. And now it's like, okay, I've been bullshitting this whole time. Now
You're ready to tell people.
this is what I do. This is what
Wait,
I'm doing.
so when you say, so if I knock on your door with a pizza and you're like, come on in, I'm doing some music, what are you probably doing? Are you on a computer doing stuff? Are you playing a guitar? Are you on a keyboard? Are you writing words? What are you probably doing if I come in and you're working on music?
So instrument wise, I kind of don't do that as much anymore because I realize that I have to focus, like same with the lion idea, right?
Yeah.
There's a macrocosm of it, whether it's activism, stand-up, improv, this. Then there's a microcosm of it within music, right? So within music, it's like, are you going to be an instrumentalist? And boom, 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 boom. And for me, I'm a lyricist. That's what I do. So I had to like say, I got to step away and let the people who've been dedicating their life to making music do the musical part.
Yeah.
I'll do the lyrical part, but I'll be a part of all of it though. I'll be right there. I will co-produce the song musically with them. I will be right there. I hear this instrument. Could you do this for me? So I'm a part of the process. But yeah, if you come into my house, what you're going to probably see me do is coming up with melodies to instrumental track that was either co-produced by me or sent to me.
Oh, cool. That's cool. So on October 2nd, I love that you call it an album because so many people, like say I'm putting out music, I'm putting out new songs, and the word album is just so not used enough anymore. But albums are a thing. It's like a complete collection of your latest ideas and approaches. So I'm psyched that that's what you're calling it. And are you familiar? This is just a wild hair. Are you familiar with Manu Chao? Do you know the musician?
Of course, I
okay.
love.
All right. Just checking. The reason it's on my mind. The reason it's on my mind today while we're talking is because yesterday, my friend, one of my dearest friends from childhood, who I lived in New York with for years, he said, September 11th reminded me to look back on some old hard drives, and he found about a half an hour's worth of video of a Manu Chao concert from August of 2001 that he was at in Central Park. And I literally remember not being able to go to that concert and being sort of jealous about it. But he had like half an hour of footage from this Manu Chao concert from 2001. Anyway, that's why he's on my mind. And then when you said Fela Kuti, Miles Davis, who else did you mention? That Bob Marley, that synthesis, I just was like, oh, Manu Chao. I mean,
right? Yeah.
So,
he has some beautiful songs. I've listened to all his albums. I love Manu Chao. I love Tupac. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who have influenced me a lot musically.
So can you talk just a little bit about the I know that in San Francisco there are like many different neighborhoods, just like any big city. There are many different neighborhoods that have very distinct personalities. You talk about going across the Bay Bridge versus going across the Golden Gate Bridge, et cetera, and different. There's a whole different world there, et cetera. But what neighborhood was your sort of like your formative years in?
A mixture of the Excelsior, like the Outer Mission, and then the Ingleside, which in like the Black community here in San Francisco we call Lakeview.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, those were my formative years for sure. Those two places.
And when you in school, did you feel like as a little kid, did you feel like I'm with fellow other kids want to be artistic and tell stories and jump around in the woods on mossy logs, or did you feel more like you and your brother were different than the other kids were maybe more less inclined to be as adventurous?
My brother and I have a different socialization. We're very similar. We're like almost like twins, but when it comes to like all my brother's friends were my friends. He's my younger brother. So he was not too much of a person who was like me, who made a lot of friends. He was more, I'm going to go hang out with my brother, the older kids, my brother and his friends.
Okay. Yeah,
so he was, he was like a stud, you know, he was like a star athlete and everything like that. So everybody, he wasn't like an outcast, but he was just like, I'm hanging out with the older kids. But for me, I think I was kind of alone in that sense, because in elementary, I went to a very hippie elementary, so I was still finding myself, but I was the class clown, right? And
Yeah.
I was kind of a drifter, cool with everybody. And then middle school, it was very ghetto, like the movies, guns and drugs, 11-year-olds gang banging. And I was still the comedian, and I had friends who I could relate to really well with. But in high school, I went to Lowell, so Lowell was like the top academic school in San Francisco, et cetera, one of the top in the country. And everybody was more studious. So it wasn't so much of an expressive place for me, I guess, right? There was some people I clicked with, but not so much. Even in college, I've always found it hard to really find a core group of people that I click with. But comedians are the ones I for sure is like the okay, because everybody's just nuts. And I love that shit. But yeah, nah, it was mainly just me. It was mainly, a lot of times it was not in an arrogant way at all, you know. And it got to a point where I spent most of my high school years at lunch or free time, I would be in the library by myself, and I would be.
What were your favorite things to read?
It was actually, I would be writing.
Oh, you were writing.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I would be writing, but my favorite.
Did you save all that stuff? Do you have all that?
I do. It's Great. Right there. I have
nice
journals and here. I'll grab one.
Oh, look at that.
From Wicked.
Nice, man.
Yeah, I have. This is like.
Holy moly.
This is like one that I haven't finished yet, but you know, the finished one's over there. But I write really bad. And my handwriting is so bad is because when I was young, I realized that people would open your notebook and read what you wrote. And so I was like, I don't want anybody to be able to decipher it. And so I developed a very sloppy handwriting that only I could read in order for other people to be able to read.
That's an amazing like coping mechanism and defense mechanism right there.
And so for teachers too, right? Teachers says, what are you writing? What are you writing?
Yeah. Wow. How did you eventually find your way to Meisner Studio, San Francisco?
Through the Academy of Art University.
Oh, you went to, okay, yeah.
They I was doing the film program, motion pictures and television program there, and then I took the acting class with Jim Jarrett, and he asked me like, hey, I'll invite you to my private school. It's like invite, you have to go through an interview process, whatever. And he goes, but can you commit? Like, are you going to be on time? Are you going to be dedicated? You know, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, he hooked me up with scholarship type thing and helped me out through the way, was very understanding with me, gave me a lot of chances. You know, I broke a lot of rules. He let me slide, you know. He was dope. He was dope. But that's how I got involved with that. I was doing a lot of stuff people do when they're in college and stuff in high school, and I was in sports. So I didn't get a chance to know what improv was and all these things. I didn't know what the fuck the punchline was. And so through the punchline is where I found out improv, because I saw a comedian on Bart late night, and I was a local comedian. I noticed him from the show, and I was like, hey man, I'm trying to become a better comedian. What should I do? And he was all like, do improv. And he got on the BART train and just like went off into the darkness. And I was just like, improv? What the fuck is improv? Right?
He threw a smoke.
and then I looked it up. I was everything I've always wanted to do, the best.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not gonna go, like, even at the radio station I work at, everything I did, I was like, I want to make sure this is the best I could do. Fuck the expense. Right? Yeah. They're like, oh, it's the most expensive. I don't give a fuck. Is this the best? That's what I'm doing. And so when I saw Bats, I was like, okay, this is the best in Northern California. I'm going there. And I just started going to shows and volunteering to kind of see what it was. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to take a class. And then I started taking class. I'm about 18 years old, right? And I was like, I'm going to take a class. And then from there, I started TAing. And, you know, on weekends, Fridays and Saturdays, while everybody was going to parties and shit, I was at Bats volunteering
Yeah.
for the show. And on Sundays, I was at the Punchline for the local showcase. My weekends were, and every other day I was at work or I was, out of school, internship, whatever. So my schedule was packed where I never really had time to kick it with people, you know what I'm saying? So, but, in clarification for a lot of the crazy stuff we did, because a lot of people have judgments over it. For me, I talk about it freely. One, statute of limitations. I know I'm not going to get in trouble for it. But two, because I understand the generational systemic disenfranchisement that led to a lot of these things happening. Why were we subjected to doing that, right? For me, not so much my parents. My dad was just such a charitable person that and they didn't know what we were doing. But what happened was, a lot of my friends ended up living with us for many different reasons. And when they lived, it was like a frat house, like 8 to young boys, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're all like, and it got to a point where my dad stopped buying food. He was like, yo, I'm not going to buy food and it's gone in an hour. He spent $200 on groceries. It's gone in an hour. There's 8 hungry growing boys. We're going to tear that fridge up. So my dad was like, you guys got to get a job. We're 15 years old, like, fuck, we're not trying to work, right? We're hungry. You know what I mean? And we don't really have access or opportunities. We don't know a lot of the different things. So my friends, were, growing up they were growing up in the projects and stuff like that, right? So they're like, we know how to get something, and I was like, okay, let's do it, and then it just, and it ended up being like this big ass crime, like heist that we tried to commit. It was all over the news. 2 of my friends got caught. One of them got tasered and beat and shit. Oof. And I had to leave the state, on the run.
Wow.
Because they didn't have a warrant. They didn't have enough information, but they wanted to talk to me. And I called the detective, like, anything you need, just let me know. Luckily, he didn't pick up. I just left a message. My plan was never to talk to them to begin with. I was just doing that to try to seem innocent. And I left the state, and I had to spend a year out of state. And I took a train using my brother's name,
Yeah.
And when I was out of state, I kind of had a mind-opening thing where I was like, why do we act this way? Is this how we're supposed to act? And then it kind of opened my mind to like, what is the history? I didn't even know Black history, because Black History Month, you get taught the basics and the bullshit. You were slaves, then and Native Americans were this, and then they don't have this. You don't really get this all Eurocentric perspective. And so I kind of had to dive into history to really understand why a lot of the people were in this position, why a lot of the closest people to me ended up in jail or dead or on drugs or crippled or crazy or disabled or whatever. And when you find out, it's like, oh, you know what I mean? It's like, we have to have responsibility for ourselves as well, right? We're not just, we have to be accountable just for our actions as well. But there's also a historical thing that's so deep and it's systemic that it's more powerful than any one person could handle.
So there's this new awakening that's happened, hopefully this awakening that's happened with since George Floyd's murder and all the Breonna Taylor and all the other publicized murders that have finally woken people up to what's been going on for decades and centuries. And in this sort of new awakening of systemic racism, it probably in some ways a person could be forgiven for sitting back and folding their arms and saying, yeah, I've been living this, this is why I was, my friends and I were driven to do what we do because we were hungry, et cetera. I'm just forever flabbergasted that somebody like you can be an artist and say like, you know what, I'm going to spread love instead. And I'm going to, it's
I'm
amazing.
Not perfect. Hey, yo, I'm not perfect. I've made hella mistakes in my life. I just wear them on my sleeve. And, I think you know, if I'm going to stand for anything when it comes to activism, I always say reparations. And to
Yeah.
people who are Black, I say Pan-Africanism. But besides that, I would like to say that in this new age of cancel culture, if it's, some people say it's not even real, but I think that cancel culture, I understand it, but I think it's just as destructive as the prison system. Because when you put someone in prison, there's recidivism, right? There's 80% chance that they're going to go right back to prison. Why? Because prison didn't rehabilitate them. Prison made them a better or more evil criminal or whatever, right? Because prison's crazy. So if you cancel somebody, that's not teaching them or making them a better person. That's actually putting them in damn near solitary confinement, which is inhumane. So for me, I don't believe in canceling people. I believe that there needs to be a dialogue. You know, even with the new ideas and concepts that are happening with just learning pronouns, everything. A lot of these things are so cutting edge and new that you can't expect people to immediately hop on board. Like the backlash with vaccinations totally makes sense to me. People are like, you guys are fucking idiots. You get vaccinated, wear your mask. I'm like, this is all new. This is a year. You expect everybody just to immediately, I'm on board. What? This is so, we're in a crazy time right now. Just so for people to think people should automatically join a movement or automatically believe in something, it's hard for me. I can't do that. I understand both sides. You know, I got vaccinated, I wear my mask, but I'm like, I understand the people on the other side. You know, this is new. You know, give me some more time to make a decision. Right now, I got a day or whatever to understand what pronouns are or whatever, understand whatever the fuck, or gender and sex, and now you know what I mean? Even historically, men have been so oppressive towards women. Like a lot of times rape was just a thing, you know, marital rape was legal till 1992. You know what I'm saying? Like, so a lot of these things, like, we're conditioned into it. I was conditioned into a hip hop misogynist culture where it was like, yeah, bitches ain't shit and all this stuff. I had to unlearn that. It took a long time too. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, of course. What? Why was I? It was like, oh, I didn't see it that way. So I think by trying to cancel people is not productive, unless, depending on how deep it is, you know what I mean? But if it's that deep, you won't have to cancel them. They'll go to prison, right? So, so I think but go for it.
I was just gonna say, there's the Aristotle, there's the big-hearted guy who's read the ancients and you know, and understands the hero's journey and storytelling and what we have in common as opposed to what separates us, and you know, making the world a better place instead of trying to make the more divided place. Larry, it's amazing to talk to you. I would it really is. It's you know, I would hope that people take your class as long as you're going to be teaching, before you get too busy, before you get, you know, bust out and get discovered and aren't available to teach anymore. I hope people take your classes and then go see you in shows.
And shout out to a lot of the people who helped me become who I am, like Equipto, local rapper, who's like a legend out here, who's activist, you know, Diane Baker, who the legendary actress, right? She's helped me a lot. And there's a lot of other people who really, you know, a lot of people say I did it all on my own. You know, sometimes I would say that, you know, and as I got older, I was like, I didn't do it on my own. There's a lot of people who helped me, you know what I mean? You, well, you know, you're helping me right now. You're talking with me. You know, you're giving me a platform. So thank you, Mike, you know. And of course, man. I'm just, at the end, I'm just a frog on a log. I'm just like everybody else, you know. I'm just a koala bear on a leather chair. We're all equal, and I'm trying to use what I am best at to give to the world, and that's all I could do.
And you're doing it, man. Keep doing what you're doing. And finally, a piece of advice for anybody that you want to tell who's an artist who's struggling, or who's thinks they're a creative person but can't figure out their way, or um, just any thought that you might offer.
Humility, but also I think that there needs to be more substance. I think we're moving away from nature and we're going into a roboticized, commodified, commercialized reality and existence, and that we gotta go back to nature. Like, people have to be happy with who they are. This is who you are. This is nature. You're a human being. Boom. Your circumstances. This is what your circumstances are, et cetera, et cetera. I think we're doing so much things against nature. You know what I mean? The shamans in the Amazon jungle, they say that if you want to know the meaning to life, look to the animals and study them, because that's what we are. We're just animals, and we're trying to do things that are not in our nature. You know, so I would say that as artists, be humble, find a connection to nature and our true essence as human beings. You know what I mean? And also study, because people don't study enough. That's the thing with hip hop right now. Hip hop, people are just I'm a rapper now. They don't know anything about the greats, the legends. They haven't listened to a bunch of hip hop. They're recycling rhymes or regurgitating things, that motifs and themes that have already been touched upon. So be studious, you know, as much as possible. We should always be found studying, you know.
Oh, I love that. Always be found studying. You can find him online at Larry Dorsey Jr. and keep an eye on Larry Dorsey Jr. because he's going places and he can teach you something. Larry, so much. Thank you so much for being here. Really, my great pleasure having you today and privilege. And thanks to Brendan Davis for being our tech, and Allison Constanti for being our moderator. We'll see you next time on Impro Talk. I'm all tongue-tied now because I'm so moved. Thank you for joining us on Impro Talk. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you. I'm sorry for talking so much.
All right. That's what you're here for.